Hello aspirants, welcome back to Believers as Academy. In today's video, we will be doing Indian polity with respect to Parliament chapter, which is one of the most important chapter in terms of finding those high-yielding topics. And every year there is a question from Polity Lakshmikant, especially the Parliament chapter. And even before we proceed with solving or let's say discussing with respect to questions, we have categorized the important themes from this particular Parliament chapter, depending on, or sorry, based on the questions that were previously asked. And I can short down, or let's say I can just, I have actually modified this into three different categories: most important, high important, and least important topics. So based on this, we will be discussing the Parliament chapter. So first, we will see all those important topics within the Parliament chapter. So first is with respect to the most important, which is absolutely, let's say, which carries, like, let's say, if I have to rate it by, with respect to 5, I can say it the importance is 5 on 5 on these particular topics, because every year, or let's say every back-to-back consecutive years, maybe like, or let's say once in like last 2 years, there have been questions from these topics whatsoever. So the first topic of the most important theme is the types of bills. You have to clearly know about the ordinary bill, the money bill, the finance bill, and the constitutional amendment bill, and let the focus be mostly on understanding the differences between each of the bill. What is an ordinary bill? What is the difference between the money bill, where it is been initiated first, who gives the assent, and for which kind of bill the joint setting can happen, and those kind of things. And most importantly, the procedure. Like with respect to the ordinary bill, what is the first stage, the second stage, and after that what happens? And even with respect to ordinary bills, when let's say the Lok Sabha dissolves, what happens, right? So these are the areas where there are a few concepts which are very confusing, and UPSC loves those, right? Next is the with respect to the role of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha with respect to each of these bills plays a very important role, especially the money bill and the finance bill. Because money bill, we usually study that the Rajya Sabha does not have much power. Rather, it just has 14 days within which it has to just see the money bill and then probably return. It does not have any right to, or does not have any power to change or modify the money bill. For on the other hand, the finance bill, the Rajya Sabha has equal powers, pretty much like they can even amend or they can even do some changes with respect to finance bill. So the role of Lok Sabha, the role of Rajya Sabha has to be very clear. And most importantly, as I've already discussed, the joint sitting, when it is allowed, when it is not allowed, those provisions. Second important topic is with respect to the legislative procedures within the bills and the procedures of the parliament. For example, the introduction of the bill, the passage of the bill, the assent, and what happens during the assent, especially in the hand of president, or let's say even in the hand of governor, right? And in terms of joint sitting, what happens, especially let's say if the Lok Sabha dissolves and joint sitting is already convened by the president. So what happens? Will the joint sitting take place or not? Right? Those kind of questions. And in terms of lapsing of bills, and UPSC, the PYQ, if you just see, the hotspot is mostly with respect to what happens to a particular bill, especially when it lapses, when Lok Sabha dissolves. So this is like one of the most important areas of interest. Third is with respect to budget and financial procedure, right? You have to know about the articles as well, very important, because this has a huge overlap from both the polity and economy, and also this is from the political aspect that you have to know, and the demand for grants with respect to appropriation bill, with respect to the finance bill, and vote on account, right? Questions have been asked from these topics, and that is why they are very important. And while studying these concepts, make sure you link the president's recommendation with the Lok Sabha dominance. Try to understand in which areas that the president's recommendation matters, and where all are those areas where Lok Sabha dominance can be seen. And fourth is with respect to the sessions of parliament. In terms of summoning, prorogation, dissolution, most confusing areas are especially when they try to ask statement-based questions from these topics, from these micro topics, which is very important to have a clarity, without which solving them would be absolutely difficult. So you have to mostly focus on the difference between all the three, and this with respect to president and with respect to Lok Sabha, like let's say what happens, etc., all of those things. Next is the fifth most important topic from the high yielding areas is the powers of Lok Sabha versus Rajya Sabha. So it's better to make a table and study it in a contrasting way, especially with respect to the exclusive powers of Rajya Sabha. There are like 5 exclusive powers of Rajya Sabha where it can make laws, and all of those things we have previously discussed. So these are some of the important areas. Next is with respect to the equal powers, and this mostly I'm talking with respect to the bill. Okay, so with respect to the bill, what are the exclusive powers, what are the equal powers, and also with some aspects, the special powers of Rajya Sabha, as I've discussed in certain areas of doing, or let's say having legislation on the state legislature. Now, the second category is the high importance. Like, let's say if I have to rate it out of 5, I can say this is 3 out of 5, right? So, first is the parliamentary motions, where you have to study about the no confidence motion, adjournment motion, censure motion, calling attention motion. Pay attention mostly on the houses where exactly no confidence motion can be applied, or let's say can be dealt with, the adjournment motion, and what is the purpose. This is also very important. Next is with respect to the offices and roles, especially the office of speaker, the deputy speaker, right, the leader of opposition, the chairman and the vice chairman, the deputy chairman becomes very important. So also let the focus be mostly with respect to the special situations, especially concerning their removal, or let's say in terms of do they have the right to vote in the first instance, especially when the resolution for removal is in place for a speaker, deputy speaker, the chairman, right? Those kind of things. Next is the parliamentary privileges, freedom of speech, immunities. So basically, in these kind of topics, just the basic understanding is sufficient. But questions will come from these, so it is better you just read them. Next important area is the committees of parliament. Very important, especially committees like PACs. Your Public Account Committee, Estimates Committee, Committee on Public Undertakings, Committee on Subordinate Legislation, and Ethics Committee. Ethics Committee recently 2024 also there was a question. So here, just do not try to memorize all those members, who are part of the PAGs and all of those things. Of course, you have to know, especially where the Speaker of Lok Sabha is the chairman, or let's say wherever the Prime Minister is chairman. The basic understanding is required. But most importantly, you have to know the functions. And if you, let's say, focus more on understanding the functions or learning the functions of all these committees, that is also more than sufficient. Now, the third category is the moderate importance, where it is important. It is good to know. You can read it, but with, let's say, some little focus, because the most focus areas are the first two areas which we discussed already. So now this is the third area, like where I can say the importance is like, let's say, 2 to 5. So first is parliamentary devices. You have to know individually what is a question hour, what is a 0 hour, what is a half hour discussion, and also anti-defection law, the basics, the role of speaker, and the instances when anti-defection is permitted, anti-defection is not permitted, with respect to independent candidate, with respect to group of ministers, right? So all of these things is what is important with respect to anti-defection law, and also the lawmaking powers with respect to the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, right? And here, just the general understanding is sufficient. And the last category is the low priority. Means it is priority, like you have to give the priority. I can say 1 out of 5 means it is important, but not so important as compared to other topics. First is with respect to the detailed composition of committees. As we have discussed, you have to know wherever, if the Prime Minister is the chairman, or let's say the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is the chairman, and so few committees, Speaker of Lok Sabha is, let's say, he's the chairman by de facto, right? So that is also important. So those kind of committees is very important for you to understand. Next is the historical evolution, and then minor procedural details and all of those things. However, it is good to know these kind of topics, but not essentially required to know. So let's begin with the topics, the questions, because in fact we have categorized the entire list of the important to the least important or the least priority areas from the Parliament chapter. So we will be discussing each of the questions with respect to these categorization itself. So today we will be discussing with respect to the first category, and mostly it will be with respect to the bills. So let's start the question or the topic discussion. So for the first question, what are the 5 stages in the life of an ordinary bill? Well, an ordinary bill goes through 5 stages in Parliament, which is the first reading, the second reading, and then there are 3 sub stages within the second reading, and then there is this third reading, and fourth is when the passage of the bill happens to the next subsequent house. So let's look at it one by one. So the first reading, what happens? The bill is introduced in either of the house, Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, by a minister or a private member. And also this is also very important to know, like if it is a bill which is introduced, or which a minister is introducing, he has to give a 10-day prior notice. And then if it is a private member bill, private member is introducing the bill, he has to give a 30-day prior notice, and only then he can initiate the launching, or let's say the first reading, or initiate the bill in the first place in the house. And basically you have to keep in mind that no actual discussion happens at this particular stage, but this is also the stage when the bill will be published in the gazette notification for a particular point of time. And then the second reading happens, where in itself there are three different sub stages. First is the general discussions with respect to the principles and objectives of the bill, which will be discussed in detail, and then it goes to a particular committee. It will be referred to a particular committee. It could be a select committee, joint committee, standing committee, right? And maybe a separate ad hoc committee could also be created, right? And a clause by clause examination will take place in the second stage, and within the second stage, the committee stage, and then comes the consideration stage, where the house will debate and vote on each and every clauses and amendments. However, after this particular stage, it goes to the third reading, where the final discussion happens with respect to the bill, where already the discussions with respect to the each and every clauses and amendments have already been discussed. But right now it is the final discussion. So here the scope for amendments, or the scope for changes with respect to any clauses will be quietly limited, right? And no major amendments can be seen in this particular third stage, and voting will happen through simple majority. And once this happens, let's say this has happened in the Rajya Sabha, then it will go to Lok Sabha, and if the same thing is first initiated in the Lok Sabha, then it goes to the Rajya Sabha. So even in the second house, same three readings gets followed, and the other house now have an option whether to pass it, amend it, reject it, or keep it pending, right? So this is with respect to the ordinary bill. And then the last stage, it goes to the president for his assent. Article is 111, very important. So here president has three different options. He can give assent, he can withhold assent, and he can return the bill for reconsideration, except the money bill. Of course, we have discussed this very detail in the president chapter. You can just go back to the president chapter, which is available in the playlist, and you can just get to know more about it, right? So this is with respect to the 5 stages of a bill. Next is with respect to what constitutes the first reading. Of course, we have discussed, so let's just discuss in detail. So the first reading is also considered to be, or it is also called as the introduction stage, and the article number is 107, which is important because previous year there was a question from the first reading exactly with respect to what happens in first reading. So now it's better you just go slightly one step further. So try and learn the article as well. It's very important, 107. What are the key points in this particular stage? It is the stage where the bill gets introduced. So leave to introduce the bill is definitely required to be taken. As I discussed, there is a 10-day prior notice, and then 30 days prior notice with respect to minister if he is placing the bill, or the private minister if he is placing the bill, respectively, and usually granted without opposition. If opposed, brief discussion will happen, and then voting will take place. And after the introduction, the bill gets published in the gazette notification for a while. And here is the stage where no debate happens with respect to the bill, right? So the first reading is pretty much the formal introduction of the bill, and here no discussion takes place. The only thing you have to keep in mind that it gets published in the public gazette, and also the leave sought in order to introduce the bill with respect to the private member or a minister. Next question, what is a money bill? Explain article scope and exclusions. Very, very, very important. Well, all the while people were only focusing on article 110 money bill, article 110 money bill. And ever since UPSC had already previously asked 4 to 5 times with respect to money bill as a concept, suddenly when in 2024 UPSC asked article 109 as one of the statements of the money bill question, most of the people like literally they could not even solve this. It was such a simple question, right? So that is the reason why you have to do PYQs, and when you're doing PYQs, when you know that the particular topics have been asked multiple times, so it is better you can go one step further with respect to that particular topic. So yeah, coming back to the money bill, article 110, it defines money bill. However, the special procedure with respect to the money bill is explained in article 109, and then there is article 117 which talks about financial bills 1 and financial bill 2. Well, article 110 defines money bill. So a money bill is that particular bill if it is dealing only with these provisions. Which are the provisions? First is with respect to taxation. It could be imposition of tax, abolition of tax, remission, or any alteration with respect to any taxes. It talks about the borrowing of the government of India. It talks about the custody or the withdrawal of the funds from CFI, the Consolidated Fund of India, and the Contingency Fund of India. And with respect to appropriation of money, with respect to declaring expenditure as charged, and also with respect to receipt, custody, audit of public money. And only is the keyword here, because UPSC tend to use only as an extreme statement, and most of the people think, or let's say they have learned it in a way where they have a basic understanding to make those statements wrong if it has only, thinking that even that is an extreme statement. But especially categorically, there are few areas where in Lakshmikant only word is used. So those areas you have to know, right? So the word only applies to money bill, and with these provisions which you have to keep in mind. And who decides that it is a money bill or not? It is the local Lok Sabha speaker, or the speaker of Lok Sabha, who decides that if it is a money bill or not, and his decision is final. So basically, it cannot be questioned even in a court of law as well. So that is also one of the important aspects. So speaker decides and his decision is final. Next is with respect to exclusions. What are the components which do not form or come under the money bill? If you have to see, there are important areas. So one is with respect to fines or penalties, fees for licenses or services, and any local taxation by the local bodies cannot be a part of money bill. Well, that's about the money bill. However, I really prefer that you people once again go to Lakshmikant and just read this particular topic clearly, and let's say probably try and make some short notes on this topics as well. Next is, can a non-minister introduce a money bill? The answer is absolutely no, because it is only the minister who can introduce a money bill, and even before introducing the money bill, it requires president's prior recommendation, and it can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha. There is also one important thing with respect to money bill, which is very important, you have to keep in mind. Next question, what are the financial bills? Explain the types. Article 117 talks about two types of financial bills. Financial Bill 1, which is Article 117 subclause 1. It contains money bill provisions plus any other matters. And this particularly is similar to a money bill, but not purely money related. It could be related to any administrative or let's say any other matters of general public importance also can be a part of this, with some money bill provisions, and that can be classified as a financial bill. And even this is also introduced only in Lok Sabha. It also requires prior president's recommendation. However, unlike the Rajya Sabha, unlike the money bill, where Rajya Sabha does not have any power whatsoever in terms of amending or changing the provisions and all of that. Here, Rajya Sabha has full powers. It can amend, it can reject. But in terms of money bill, Rajya Sabha can only recommend few suggestions, and those recommendations are not binding in the Lok Sabha. But here in Finance Bill 117, the subclause 1, which we usually call it as Finance Bill 1, it is pretty much like a money bill in terms of the introduction, that it is only introduced in Lok Sabha. It requires president's recommendation, pretty much like money bill. However, in terms of the power, or in terms of the Rajya Sabha's power, it is treated like an ordinary bill. Keep in mind. Next is Finance Bill 2. The article is as Article 113 subclause 3. So this involves expenditure from the consolidated fund and does not include money bill provisions. Very important. See, these are the areas where UPSC can set traps, and UPSC loves these kind of areas. So please pay attention, and also try to make your own handwritten notes, or else your own small notes, short notes from Lakshmikant as well. Now coming back to the features, you have to keep in mind that this is pretty much like any other ordinary law, because here the introduction can happen either in the Lok Sabha or even in the Rajya Sabha. So that is the feature which makes it look like an ordinary bill, and president's recommendation is not required in the initial stage, like in the Finance Bill 1 and let's say the money bill. We saw that prior president recommendation is required. Even before the introduction, prior president recommendation is required. But Finance Bill 2, or the Article 117 subclause 3, which talks about the second financial bill, does not require prior recommendation of the president, but it needs president's recommendation, but before consideration. Okay, and it is also treated like a ordinary bill. Keep in mind. And with respect to the joint sitting, of course, your money bill does not have any provision of joint sitting, but finance bill will have. And in fact, finance bill the joint sitting is allowed, because it is pretty much dealt as a ordinary bill. Now let's quickly see the small table here. So article with respect to money bill, financial bill 1, financial bill 2. So article is 110, 117 sub clause 1, 117 sub clause 3, and here introduced in. So the money bill, it is only introduced in the Lok Sabha. The finance bill 1, it is also introduced only in Lok Sabha. The finance bill type 2, it can be introduced in either of the houses, either Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. And with respect to money bill, only a minister can initiate it. Even with respect to finance bill 1, even then it is only a minister. But however, the finance bill 2 can be initiated either by a minister or a private member. And in terms of the Rajya Sabha power with respect to money bill, it is absolutely limited. But in terms of finance bill 2 and finance bill 1, it is full, or I can say that it is dealt as an ordinary bill. Next question, what does deadlock, or let's say, when does deadlock arise in parliament? Which bills do not allow joint sitting? Very, very important. So the article is also important, article 108. So if the deadlock occurs, if one house rejects the bill, let's say Lok Sabha passes the bill to Rajya Sabha and Rajya Sabha rejects the bill. Okay, so now we can say that there is a deadlock, and it can, the president can call for a joint sitting. Next is houses disagree on amendments. Now let's say the same case, Lok Sabha has passed a bill and Rajya Sabha is absolutely not happy with the amendments, right? So even then I can say the bill is bound to go for a joint sitting. And then now let's say the Lok Sabha has passed and now Rajya Sabha is not rejected, but Rajya Sabha has once again sent the bill back to the Lok Sabha by suggesting a few recommendations, in fact suggesting few amendments in the bill. So now let's say the Lok Sabha absolutely rejects those amendments. Even then I can say that a deadlock has been created. Next is other house does not act for 6 months. Now let's say the Rajya Sabha has initiated a particular bill. It has gone to Lok Sabha. Now let's say Lok Sabha is idle and is not reacting for that bill for the period of 6 months. Even then it is considered as a deadlock in either cases. Even if Lok Sabha introduces and it goes to Rajya Sabha and Rajya Sabha holds it for 6 months, even then it is a deadlock. So that is the situation when president will call for a joint sitting, and it is usually presided by the Speaker of Lok Sabha. And if a Speaker of Lok Sabha is not there, then it will be the Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha who will preside the joint sitting. And if Deputy Speaker of the Lok Sabha is also not there, it is the Deputy Chairman of the Rajya Sabha which will preside over the joint sitting. Keep in mind, the Chairman of Rajya Sabha does not get to chair the joint sitting of the Lok Sabha, because ultimately Chairman of the Rajya Sabha is also the Vice President of India, who is not a member of Parliament, right? So it's as simple as that. Next is which are the bills which can go for the joint sitting, or let's say which are the bills does not have joint sitting. One is the money bill, second one is the constitutional amendment bills. Very important, keep in mind, money bills, no joint sitting can be happen, or else can happen. Constitutional amendment bills also, no provision for your joint sitting. Right, so this is with respect to your joint sitting and some of the important topics. So for all of these topics, please pay attention and go back to your Lakshmikant, read them clearly, thoroughly, and also make some small notes. And this is pretty much based on your PYQ, so it will definitely give you some yield in the examination. And anyway, yeah, that's all for this particular video. We will be covering the entire polity, Lakshmikant, especially the Parliament chapter, in the similar fashion. So we will come up with few more videos, probably another 3 to 4 more videos with respect to Parliament, and we will be done. So until then, yes, all the best for your prelims examination. Study well, and signing off. This is Madan Gopal. Have a wonderful day.